These past weeks, I participated in an event called the Viral Glitch Game Jam, a competition where online game devs using GameMaker had 2 weeks to make a game based off the theme Predictably Unpredictable. I decided to join this jam for many reasons: to get more involved in the GameMaker community, to get more experience making games, and also there were juicy cash prizes. But the jam was starting literally the same day as when Deltarune would be released, and since Deltarune is made in GameMaker, pretty much the whole GameMaker community loves Deltarune and would be too busy playing it to participate in this jam. So I thought I would have a good shot at doing good in this competition if I just bit the bullet and held off playing Deltarune for 2 weeks, avoiding spoilers until I could finally play it once the jam was over. So with my master plan now set, I began developing my game, except I actually had a little less than 2 weeks because I spent the first 2 days releasing my first devlog, but anyways, when I finished with that, I got to work. I interpreted the theme Predictably Unpredictable as something that was random, but consistently random, in a way where you at least always know it's going to be unpredictable. So I thought about some things that you know will always be unpredictable, and my first thought was a trip to the airport. I thought it would be fun if you played as a guy running late for his flight, so you have a limited amount of time to get to a terminal, but on the way, you would run into a bunch of crazy events that would hinder your run. With my premise now set, I started first with the art, making a basic little guy with a suitcase, and I thought he looked a lot like Emmett from the Lego movie, so I decided to name him Emmett, but with an extra T, to be different of course. Soon enough, I had a basic movement system with collisions going, which even had a mobile joystick mode. I wanted my game to be able to be played by my friends and family on only their phone, so this is something I wanted to include since the beginning. After that, I made a timer in the corner that would tick down to 0, representing how much time you had left. I decided to canonically give Emmett a digital watch, and that's what you see in game. I very quickly realized that I wanted the main obstacle in the game to be those conveyor belt looking flat escalators you see in airports that help you get to places faster. So I looked them up, and apparently they're called travelators, which I thought is a funny name, like something Tynes Doofenshmirtz would call it. But anyways, so the game is filled with these crazy travelators. Although, before I looked up what they were called, I already named them conveyors in the game's code, but the player doesn't have to know that. I was very happy with how the travelators came out, and I made them in a way where I could simply rotate the object's angle in the room editor, and that's the direction it'll take the player. But at this point, I was starting to realize that I needed to make my airport feel alive, and the best way to do that was with NPCs. The problem was, if I wanted a plethora of unique NPCs, I couldn't just draw each one like how I did with the player, as that would take way too long. So I decided to finally learn how to write shaders, and I used a technique called palette swapping, a thing that a bunch of other games use to get differently colored sprites easily, like Amogus for example. If you saw my last video, you'll know I'm a total noob when it comes to shaders, but this time around I was determined to get better at them. So I started watching tutorials from this great teacher named Dragonite Spam, and soon enough I knew the basics of how shaders worked. I ended up making a basic shader that first takes a base sprite for the NPC, turns these colors into these colors, while turning every other pixel transparent. That way it can be layered with the other sprites as needed.
Hooray!
And then I did that like 100 more times for every single customizable color palette in the game. Okay, yeah, I admit, this was definitely not the best way to do things. For example, if the NPC was even slightly transparent, you'd start to see its alien looking insides underneath.
What the hell?
But in my defense, it was literally the first shader I ever made, and it got the job done for the limited scope of my game. And after making the couple more base sprites needed, I had a ton of NPCs, each with a unique color palette, making for almost 60,000 combinations of NPCs. But then, I decided to add a bunch of accessories for the characters to have, to give each just a little bit more personality, and that's when the total number of NPCs really started to balloon. After finishing my game and doing all the calculations, there ended up being, drumroll please, actually I don't know why I'm making it a big reveal, you literally already saw the number at the thumbnail, but it's 24,183,395. This number got huge, thanks in large part to the fact that I made certain compatible accessories stackable. For example, an NPC could have a necklace, a hat, and sunglasses, but not 3 different hats. I spent an entire 2 days of development on just adding these customizable NPCs, but I think it was worth it because they really do make the airport come alive. I even added a bunch of random phrases they could say, which I tried to make funny when I could. The game, which I had decided to call Terminal Turbulence at this point, was starting to look pretty good so far, but now it's time for the real meat and potatoes, the random event minigames. In the game, the order of rooms are completely random, and some have a special event that puts you into a minigame. I really wanted to make every minigame absurd, yet fun, so for the first minigame we have a comically large banana peel dropping from the sky. You have to time your jump correctly to jump over it, otherwise, yeah, you get sent back to the beginning of the last room. Why doesn't Emmett just walk around the banana peel? Good question. Next, I wanted to use the random NPCs I've made to create a minigame similar to the Find Luigi minigame from Super Mario Bros. On the DS, which I had really fun memories of playing when I was younger. In this one, you find a baby on the ground in an empty hallway, and since Emmett is just such a good person, you have to return the baby to its parent, which is a random NPC in this huge crowd. The baby uses the same set of shaders as its parent, so they actually look related, which I think is a nice detail, even if sometimes the baby can have white or dyed hair. Also, since no one likes a crying baby, this baby just kinda sits there and blinks. It even has a robot voice, which I thought was pretty funny.
Wow.
And don't ask why he speaks perfect English already. Probably one of the more realistic events in this game to actually happen is the random security check. Just like the rage-inducing Among Us card swipe task, you have to drag your luggage through the x-ray at the correct speed. I even included a little Easter egg where you can see what's inside Emmett's luggage. Let's see, a video game controller, a rubber ducky, and a single shirt? Okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt since he was running late and probably didn't have a lot of time to pack, which explains why he's only bringing the essentials. And wait, the annoying dog?
Hi, I'm Toby Fox.
I really wanted to include the annoying dog as an Easter egg, but it was low-key risky due to the copyright. Not because Toby Fox would strike down my game or anything, because he's totally chill like that, but because I need the rights to use any asset in my game, including licensed characters, otherwise I can get disqualified. But I'm just gonna go ahead and say that this little Easter egg is fine, because the competition organizers literally used the annoying dog in official promotional artwork for the game jam, so if they strike my game, then they're a bunch of hypocrites. Anyways, I changed 1 or 2 pixels of the sprite, so I should be fine. Moving on, one of the minigames I always wanted to include was an annoying tourist who doesn't get out of your way until you give them directions. You do this by dragging a pin on a map to the terminal without touching the border, which is kind of inspired by that one level from the Impossible quiz, if anyone remembers that. I accomplished this by just checking what color is underneath your mouse pointer, with each color being represented by these long strings of numbers. I literally have no idea why these numbers are what they are, but it works and I'm not going to question it. Also, the tourist talks like Queen from Deltarune.
Bruh.
Next, I made a rat that steals your luggage since I had already made a running animation for Emmett without his luggage and I didn't want that to go to waste. And cause giant rats are a thing in New York City, I'm pretty sure, and the game actually takes place there, though it took a long time to get the rat's movement working how I wanted it. Making it move around the room just randomly made it stupid easy to catch, so I wrote a full-on algorithm for the rat to determine the best direction to run away from you, and then it became literally impossible to catch, but I was able to eventually find a middle ground. And for the final minigame, a super famous celebrity walks in, which forms a crowd of super fans that block your way. Your only choice is to smack the fans into oblivion, in a game inspired by the Plants vs Zombies Whack-A-Zombie minigame, which may be a little violent, but it's actually pretty fun to do, so who cares. Originally, I wanted the way you get rid of the fans to be by cancelling the celebrity, as I thought that'd be really funny, but unfortunately I didn't know the best way of turning that into a minigame, so it was scrapped. Speaking of scrapped features though, let's get into those real quick, because there are actually a couple scrapped random events. For example, I wanted one minigame to have a dog that randomly begins chasing you, and then you have to distract it by throwing a bone or something, but in the end I didn't know how to make literally just throwing a bone a reasonable challenge. I also scrapped a random event where you run into your coworker who bombards you with useless small talk. I thought that'd be really funny to include, but yet again I didn't think that could be made into a fun minigame with the limited time that I had. And finally, I wanted there to be a random event where a terminal could be changed, which is why you always see your ticket in the top left, and the letter actually has the capability to change. But I decided that would just be too annoying, even if it was definitely realistic. In addition to those scrapped events, you may have noticed the energy drink vending machines scattered around the game's map. You were originally supposed to be able to buy energy drinks from them using cash you'd find on the ground, and then drinking these energy drinks would make Emmett go crazy fast for a short period of time, but I ended up thinking this would be just a bit too luck dependent and it wasn't the type of gameplay I was going for. One thing that wasn't scrapped though were random luggages moving on the travelators and acting as obstacles. This one feature made for some pretty fun rooms between the minigame levels, so I'm glad I included it. And with all the levels finally designed, I made a quick ending screen that showed the player's final time along with a little message to go with it. And of course, I had to make a game over screen too. I thought it'd suck if people just needed a bit more time to complete the game though, so I was merciful and added a button to continue with an extra minute, although this disqualifies your high score. Now you probably have only one final question left. Why exactly is Emmett running late for his flight? Well, the game doesn't tell you directly, but there are some hints. Notice his typical office worker outfit. This shows that Emmett most likely works a boring 9 to 5, but why would he still be in work clothes before his flight? Well, we know his flight isn't after 5 PM because it looks like it's only midday outside, instead of it being evening, which could only mean that he woke up the day of his flight still in his work clothes. But then why would he do that? Well, the only possible explanation is that he was forced to work unpaid overtime at his office job on a Friday night and fell asleep due to exhaustion when it got late, making him almost miss his flight the next morning. Not convinced yet? Well, it's clear that Emmett barely gets any time off from work, and when you get a game over, it shows how important making this flight to see his family was for him. I mean, have you ever seen a grown man just fall to his knees and start sobbing in the middle of an airport? And take another look at those vending machines. The energy drinks are clearly packed with way too much caffeine, and yet it seems to be completely normal to these people, and the vending machines are everywhere, almost as if these energy drinks have become a necessity for the population. Couple that with the fact that the two cities on your ticket are New York and LA, literally the two richest cities in America, and the fact that the entire game is a timed speedrun, and the notion it's trying to get across becomes clear. Terminal Turbulence is clearly a commentary on the harmful yet normalized fast-paced nature found in a capitalistic society, showing that there's more than initially meets the eye behind this little jam entry. But hey, that's just a theory. A DevDav theory. Thanks for watching. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what came over me there. Anyways, I had a blast making Terminal Turbulence, and I hope you all have a blast playing it. It's linked in the description below and should run on any Chromium browser. And while the PC version is better, if all you have is a mobile device, I still highly recommend playing it on mobile, as I did make many small adjustments to make the mobile experience slightly better. Like for example, it turns out the way I implemented the NPC shaders are very GPU hungry, so in the celebrity minigame, there will be less fans on mobile to make it a bit smoother. Yeah, sorry, I know smartphones aren't exactly known for having good GPUs. Anyways, I also learned how to use the built-in GX challenges feature for the first time to create an online leaderboard for the game. Just log in with your GX account and you'll be able to compete and speedrun against every other player, and if anyone can beat my score, I'd be really impressed. The community voting for the jam is also still ongoing until July 11th, so if you have an account, make sure to log in and vote. Everyone only gets one though, so make sure to use it wisely on your favorite game submitted in the jam. Well, that's it from me for today. Thanks for watching. Wait, did somebody already mog my high score? What the heck?